Could the New England Patriots trade head coach and GM Bill Belichick to the Los Angeles Chargers? Welcome into Patriots Today. My name is Harrison Graham. That is today's show topic. A lot of buzz around this topic. Another report coming out today, so wanted to dive into this on today's video. But we want you guys to chime in first. Would you trade Bill Belichick for a first-round pick? Type Y for yes, type in for no. If you're typing in for no, I don't know what you're typing, because I would trade him for any pick, if I'm being completely honest, because I just think it's time for a reset. Y for yes, in for no. Would you trade Belichick for a first? All right, let's get into what a realistic scenario could look like. Belichick for Brandon Staley straight up. Kidding. We don't want Brandon Staley in New England. He's already gone. But there has been a lot of chatter about Belichick's next stop, assuming him and the Patriots do agree to mutually part ways, which is kind of where it feels like this is going. I don't think Robert Kraft wants to fire him by any means, but the Chargers have been a team that have been mentioned for him multiple times now. You got Mike Sando of The Athletic saying this: while turning over football operations to Bill Belichick would go against the Chargers' established ways, working out a deal with the Patriots could include New England paying much of the coach's salary. The Chargers would not have to hire a traditional GM, which would also save them money. And I think that's significant, Rolly, because the Chargers historically have not been a team that pays top dollar. Like they talked about in that same article, the Raiders, for example, they've swung big for John Gruden. They did it with McDaniels. They could do it again. The Chargers are kind of a cheap franchise, so hiring a 2-for-1 in Belichick, who can be your head coach and GM, could make some sense for that team.
And I think this not only makes some sense for Los Angeles, I think this is the most ideal scenario for the Patriots. Well, maybe the most ideal scenario is him going not in the AFC, but I'll just say this. If you're in the camp of wanting to move on from Belichick, which we both are, we think unfortunately it's time, you have to move on. It's not even because of the coaching standards. We've talked about that at length. It's more about the GM, and we don't know if Belichick would be willing to take a step down from no GM powers and just be the coach. But if he would, open story. But getting something in return for Belichick instead of just flat out firing him is something that could be very interesting, because whoever then does call the shots for New England post-Belichick could have draft capital to work with. I mean, we just saw Sean Payton go for a first-round pick. I mean, Belichick's older, and Payton was a lot more coveted, at least last season, because maybe you don't see Belichick be that type of guy because of the struggles in New England. But getting a pick back for Belichick instead of just losing him for nothing would be obviously very ideal.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll be honest. I don't think you're getting their first-round pick, especially since it's probably going to be in the top 10. But, like, a third-round pick, like, if you're set on moving on and a team will still give you a middle-round pick, I think that's a pretty good deal. Because remember with the Peyton situation, like, it's just not apples to apples to me, in my opinion. Number one, Denver was incredibly desperate. And number two, to what Rolly just said, a lot younger offensive mind for a team that's struggled on offense for a while. I don't think it's the same situation, but I think a team like the Chargers might give you their third-round pick, maybe a second-round pick. So if you're willing to go down this road, which Rolly and I definitely are, if Robert Kraft is willing to go that route, that is where this sits. Now, maybe some kind of bidding war raises the ante, Rolly, but
that's my hope.
You and I differ a bit. I'm not convinced that many teams are jockeying for Belichick. I think there might be two, maybe three that I think LA and Washington are the two that stand out to me.
But let's get nuts a little bit here, Harrison. What if the psychopath in Carolina, Tepper, is like, you know what?
He's really want
Belichick.
Card.
Obviously, they don't have a first-round pick to trade this year, so it would have to be a future first-round pick.
God.
But it would be very enticing to me to see the potential domino effect of the Chargers wanting Belichick, the Commanders, and the Panthers. And ironically enough, not many teams are going to look for a coach and a GM in one. But I think all three of those teams could actually want to go that route, especially in Carolina with Tepper. You never know what he wants. The Chargers, we outlaid why that might work a little bit. And then in Washington, new owner, Josh Harris, Maybe he wants to get it very more stability. Wow.
More
struggling
stable.
here, Harrison. More stable. We'll go with that. In Washington, and he goes a Belichick GM and coach thing. Hey, if they start bidding for Belichick, you could see this puppy start getting up to a first-round pick maybe.
Yeah, the only thing, too, is like you have to remember with Denver last year, that pick was 29th overall, I believe.
Right at the end.
So, like, look, I don't want to say it's impossible. I just think that it's wishful thinking. But again, if you get a second or third, like, that's still a win. Because remember, guys, in this scenario, you are choosing to move on from Belichick. Most of the time when you do that, you just fired the coach. Now, but if a team will trade for him, that is absolutely a win for New England. So what say you? What do you think Belichick is worth in a trade? A first or a second? Type 1 for first, 2 for second. I think it's more in that like second, third range myself. So I'll type my 2 for second. Let us know what you think in the comment section. But again, I do think the Chargers make a lot of sense. You get the 2-for-1 combo. You don't have to pay a head coach and GM salary. Belichick wouldn't necessarily be cheap, but you're filling 2 positions with 1. That team needs to improve significantly defensively. I think Belichick's presence alone makes that happen. Now, the key would be is getting the right offensive coordinator in for Justin Herbert from LA standpoint, but I do think there would be appeal from Los Angeles, and I think Belichick would like to go to the West Coast to a under-the-radar type of team, which is not that dissimilar to when he took over the Patriots. Now, obviously, it became the beast it became, but LA Chargers, not even the biggest team in town, of a town that's not even that big of a football fan base already, seems pretty appealing if you're Bill Belichick.
And the reason why is obviously the quarterback and Justin Herbert. And let's be honest here, that Chargers defense is very talented. Like, they've got pieces to be elite.
Some aging stars, but there is a lot of talent
like
there.
Khalil Mack, Bosa, Derwin James. You got Asante Samuel Jr. There's some pieces there that Belichick would be able to work with to get that defense at least in the upper half of the NFL. And then from the opposition side on the offensive end, they have Herbert. They have a couple older wide receivers, yes, but they have some talented pieces that could, under the right guidance, potentially make the playoffs. And I think a reason, and Julian Edelman actually went on Colin Cowherd's radio show and said this, I think, at the end of last week, and it really made a lot of sense to me, is that the reason why Brady was able to become so smart at a young age is because he had Belichick not only teaching him offense, but he had him teaching defenses. And I think if you get to understand what defenses are trying to do, then it will only help you on the offensive end. Yep. So teaching a young quarterback with all the talent in the world like Justin Herbert, the nuances on defense, could be really enticing to the ownership in Los Angeles to bring him in, because then you get Herbert progressing with his mind, and then that will ultimately lead you to be better on the field as well. I think that could be a storyline to keep your eye out for as well.
Yeah, it could be interesting to see how it goes. We'll keep you up to date with the latest rumors, news around Bill Belichick. Certainly more storylines to follow as it's crunch time in the NFL. 3 weeks left in the season. Can't believe we're already almost into the month of January. We will have it all covered. So be sure to subscribe, and of course, we'll cover every other Patriots story as well. Also, looking for a new hat? You can get a winter beanie with this link also, chatsports.com/PatsHats. Holidays are here. If you're looking for some Patriots gear, how about these hats that are available? A lot of these are on sale, chatsports.com/PatsHats. You can get the beanies, the curve bill, the flat bill, different logos available. All kinds of stuff, not just the ones that we are showing as well. And plus, once you go to that link, you can find other Patriots gear on that website as well. Chatsports.com/PatsHats. Get started today and get some holiday shopping done last minute here. Some interesting news here. Speaking of the Chargers and speaking of the Patriots, kind of keeping the theme of this show going, Will Grier getting signed off of the Patriots practice squad to go to New England. I do like the Pelissero inclusion of the first significant move by interim GM JoJo Wooden. I don't know if it's significant, but RIP to our sweet Prince. Second in 2 weeks, Rolly. About a month ago, we were saying, hey, give us the Will Grier, Malik Cunningham combo, and now they're both on different teams.
That's kind of listen, Zappy's been all right for
fine.
what to be expected.
Again, he's a backup.
Over the past couple weeks. But, when we were talking about who should replace Mac Jones, we talked about Cunningham and Grier because those guys had some potential at least. And other teams realized that as well. Last week it was the Ravens scooping up Malik Cunningham. This week it's the Chargers taking Will Grier. And hell, I think we're going to get to see what Will Grier's got down the stretch here in the final 3 weeks. I mean, that quarterback situation in Los Angeles is bare. I mean, are they riding with Easton Stick? They released the rookie undrafted free agent Max Duggan in a corresponding move. So obviously they like Grier more than an undrafted rookie. So it's like, it's just to me interesting. I wanted to put it in the show because, like I mentioned, it's 2 practice squad QBs lost in 2 weeks. And what that ultimately means for New England as well is just expect another addition to the practice squad. Just for practice reasons alone, you need a third quarterback on your roster or practice squad to help with the scout team and other aspects of the NFL season. So expect in the next coming days, either later today or tomorrow, the Patriots adding another quarterback to the practice squad.
Where is Matt Corral? Which, by the way,
it'd be nice to have him.
Which, by the way, I can't wait to hear that story because we talked about this a few weeks ago. It would have been nice to evaluate a guy like that down the stretch, former third-round pick, but he basically took a leave of absence from the NFL, so who knows how that's all going to play out. Obviously, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but with those games finishing up that were ongoing when we discussed this on yesterday afternoon's video, the draft order sits like this. And, Rolly, I'm not sure if you saw this actually, but if you want to pop back on, some pick odds have been updated here. So last week, the Bears, I believe, had a 96% chance of getting the number 1 pick. It is now down to 85. So it's still heavily in Chicago's favor, but with Carolina winning that game, that door seems to be ajar a little bit. Their top 2 pick chances are like 96% for Chicago, but the Patriots had like a 12 or 13% chance of getting the number 1 pick, whereas it was like 4% a week ago. So there's at least a possibility here.
Listen, I think we mentioned on yesterday's show, Carolina's remaining schedule, home against Green Bay this week.
It's a big game this week.
They go to Jacksonville, who, by the way, they're a bit of a mess
Lost
right
3
now.
in a row, yeah.
And then they finished out the year at home against the Buccaneers, who knows? Will the Panthers want to play spoiler for a potential playoff spot? Or will the Bucs have the final, or I guess not final, but the NFC South division locked up?
They could, because Atlanta is probably going to be out of it by then, and maybe the Saints lose a game. And I think they actually play each other. If they beat the Saints, they could be eliminated by then.
So, I mean, there's a legit scenario here, and then it would all come down to strength of schedule. And obviously, New England's final 3-game stretches against Denver on Sunday night this week. Then they play in Buffalo, and then they take on the Jets at home in Week 18, which that one might have significance. Because I tell you what, if the Commanders lose out...
I was just going to say, you don't want to win another game because Washington ain't winning again.
And by the way...
They look bad.
The Cardinals' strength of schedule is pretty far ahead of you, which means you probably, if you guys end up with the same record as the Cardinals, you're probably going to still have a higher pick. But Washington's strength of schedule is very, very bad, which means if you finish with the same record as Washington, and I don't see them winning another game because of how bad they've been playing, you can easily be jumped by the Commanders. So I know you don't want to lose games, and players will never openly tank, but it is in the Patriots' best interest to finish 3-14, lock up a top 2 pick, have maybe a shot at number 1, and then you know going into the offseason that you're likely going to use a top 2 pick on a hopeful franchise quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very real scenario where Washington's picking number 2 because I don't think they're winning again. And to your point, of strength of schedule. So if you're New England, again, not telling players not to try, not telling coaches not to try, but it would be good if you lost out because if you win even one game, that could get you out of the top 3 potentially. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. 3 weeks to go. We'll be here to cover all of it. If you love the Patriots, if you want more videos, hit that subscribe button. We'll be back tomorrow with more content.